Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today just going to do a quick update on where I'm at with getting the V8 out of the Discovery. So made pretty good progress so far. It's taken me a little bit longer than I was hoping. Had a few seized bolts and the usual stuff you have. Everyone moans about how hard the TDV6s are to get out. I think I did mine in about 10 hours as a first time, so you probably do it in 8 next time. The V8 is definitely harder to get out. Access is a lot better, but the main difficulty with this being the auto box, hadn't quite twigged how much bigger the auto box is. It obscures so much more stuff, so many more of the bolts. It just makes it that much harder to get off. As for access for everything else though, it's actually been pretty good. So I'll start off with what I've had to remove so far to get it out. Obviously, as you can tell, it's not out yet, so there will still be more that I will find that I'll have to take off, I'm sure. So power steering pump and associated lines, it's all gone. I'd take that off, that was easy. Aircon pump, it's gone, so that allows me to get to the engine mount there. So I could then go down from the top, undo the nut, and then there's four, well certainly I've found so far, 4 13mm hex bolts that attach it to the engine. I've cracked them off, so I'll do the same as what I did with the V6 to get it out. Jack it up off the engine mounts, take those arms off, and then that just gives me a lot more room to swing it around and do what I need to with it. This side, so alternator off, obviously that was easy enough. Starter motor out. So on these, the starter motor is 2-bolt mounting flange. One of them is the bell housing bolt, like both of them are on the TDV6, but the other one is a bolt that goes through from the front, so it bolts to the engine, not to the bell housing. It's fairly easy to find. The main power wire is different configuration on the V8. On the TDV6 it goes from fuse box down around the front in, I can't remember, pretty sure it goes up to the starter and then loops over the top to the alternator, whereas on this it goes round, comes up to the alternator and then tees off to the starter motor. So it's like a 2-stage, well not 2-stage, but they're wired differently. That's not to say you can't necessarily use TDV6 main power cable, but it's just different, just something to be aware of. Starter came out relatively easy, had to give it a couple of taps and stuff. It's obviously never been out, so it was a bit stiff, but once I was confident that I'd removed all the necessary bolts, it came out pretty easily. Plenty of space to get it out, so no bother there. The torque converter bolts, from what I can tell, I've done about 3 or 4 rotations of the engine. There's only 3 torque converter bolts mounting it to the flex plate. There's right up under the sump, I'll go underneath and show you in a minute. There's a little access hole right in the middle of the sump, really easy to see, really easy to get to. You just line the bolts up with that, get your spanner in there, undo them, not massively tight, so that's nice and easy. I say I've only come across 3 and I've done 4 rotations, so I thought there was 4, but that was just a guess, so 3 maybe, but we'll find out. All the bell housing bolts are out, basically the same as it's the same bell housing as the TDV6. Easy enough to get out. The top is a lot easier because obviously you don't have the exhaust crossover pipe, which is a nightmare on the TDV6. So as a whole, they're easy to get out. I had one that was an absolute pain to get out because it had seized. And access to that was blocked by the gearbox, so I couldn't get directly straight on it so I had to use a funny shaped spanner and stuff like that to get to it, because the chassis is in the way and the anti-roll bar's in the way, and you can't quite get on it nicely. So that took a little bit of time. Back up the top end of the engine. So one of the next things I had to do was to remove the steering column, lower column there. Just joins up there, so you've got a through bolt there and a through bolt there. You have to completely remove that bolt because it goes into this section here, so you can't slide off. Hopefully, as it did on this one, it just comes undone nice and easy, and you just slide it all apart nice and easy. On mine, when I did it on mine, the head of the bolt snapped, so I then had to drill the rest of the bolt out, and it took forever. And at that point the engine was still in, so access was very difficult, but that's another story. So once that's out, I could then get to the other engine mount nut down there. Again, nice long extension down from the top, got that undone nice and easy, and then again there's four bolts holding this engine mount on, all cracked off, ready to lift the engine. Pipe work, literally just removed the whole lot. It's not very difficult to remove. The pipes that go through the bulkhead to the heaters, they're on little push fittings, so you just push either side of the fitting and they just pull off nice and easy. Aircon is easy, you just get to it with a I think it's a 10mm hex bolt in it. It just clamps the pipes, and then if I remember correctly, there's a fitting somewhere along here, I think there. It just bolts to the bulkhead, so you undo that as well, and then the pipes come off nice and easy. Wiring, one thing I didn't realise with the diesel, which would have made life a little bit easier, which I now realise, the engine loom is completely separate. It has two plugs connected to it. This does all of the electrics on said engine, so really nice and easy to undo. So they go into the ECU here, and the main loom plug there, so you just unplug those, and then you've got these funny things which are slotted in here. There's one for the gearbox and lower stuff, and then one for the engine sits there. And to get these out, so I'll show you this, because it took me a little while to figure out how to get these out. So these clip round this little plastic bit in here. There's two little lugs either side, so what you do is you reach around the back and you just, with your finger, just release that clip, then go around and do the other side. So one, you come around this way and do it from this side, and the other one, you go around this side, then the whole lot pulls out this way. It's easy as that. That then comes out as one unit. There's a distribution box bit on the back of the engine, which this goes into, and then that's it. That's the loom and everything there. The other thing to consider is the vac lines. So this has got the diesel has a vac pump on the back of the engine. This has got an auxiliary one, so again this will need to be swapped over, which is fine, but the lines obviously go from this down. One goes to the back of the engine and the other one goes off to the master cylinder, so it's just a case of disconnecting that. At the moment I don't know, I can't see the connector easy enough on the back, and I can't reach it to know how to undo it, so I've just decided to leave it with the engine for now, and I'll pull it off and do that afterwards. It may be easy, I don't know, but I don't need it off, so that can come out with the engine. And that's about it really. That's as far as I've got so far. The one thing still holding it in at the moment is there's the Autobox loom is attached to the top of the bell housing on the gearbox and the engine side, so I need to release that, and there's also some wires that go to the rearmost lambda sensors, so I've got to pull that wiring back and put that up onto the engine, again disconnecting that bit there, just working out how it's clipped onto the engine. I'm pretty sure they're just push clips, so I should just be able to get them off, but being at the top of the engine I can't see anything, so I've just got to do it all by feel. But other than that, in theory, this engine is now held in by gravity. There's nothing else to stop it. The tricky bit, as I've slowly working out, is actually physically getting it out. So on the diesel, you can take the sump pan off where the pickup is. It's got a nice deep pan there. You can remove that. That's a separate thing to the actual main sump, and remove the pickup, and then you end up with a flat bottom on the bottom of the engine. The V8s are all one sump, so it's got the same deep pan for off-roading and everything, but it's all one thing. You can't remove it, so it means you can't just pull the engine forwards because that pan hits the diff. So hopefully I can get it up high enough with this clearance here to get it most of the way up and over the diff, and then I can start tipping it forward a bit. I've got a little bit of leeway to come forward anyway before I hit the diff, so I'm just going to have to, you know, play with it, tilt it a bit, lean it a bit, and just see what I can do to get it up and over the diff. If that doesn't work, I've got two options. Either I take all the top inlet manifold off and all the associated stuff with it. That gives me another, I don't know, probably 2-3 inches to go higher, which should hopefully be enough. If not, then I'm either diff out, which needs to come out anyway, so it's not the end of the world, but it's just another time-consuming thing, or I lift it up enough to be able to remove the diff, remove the sump. Sorry. Let's say I don't know how easy that would be, because I'd have to be able to lift the engine up high enough and lift the sump low enough to be able to get access to the pickup pipe, to then remove the pickup pipe as well and drop the whole lot as one. That then in theory should give a flat bottom engine, but I think that's probably the hardest of the options at the moment. So that's going to be one of my next things to do, is figure out all that. I did have the additional, not really complication, but the additional thing of this being LPG, had all the LPG wire and loom all across the back as well, ECU, all the wires inside, go into the OBD port, splices into all that, all the canvas network and everything like that. So I've had to meticulously remove all that to the point where I can put it all back. A lot of the wires are spliced and soldered into existing wires, so I've had to actually cut those wires, made very, very good note of them obviously, and when it comes to reinstalling, I'm actually going to put plugs, proper plugs on them, so the loom can be separated with ease, because that's the one thing that was time consuming and annoying about the setup at the moment. So yeah, that's basically it. So hopefully in the next couple of days this will be out, and I'll be able to get an idea of sizes, fit, everything like that for the flywheel, so I can get that underway, get that design and get that ordered, because that's going to be the long lead time thing. You know, it's going to be 6 to 8 weeks to have that made. In that time I can be doing all timing chains, be doing all the chassis work on the other car, and getting that all ready for the engine to go back in. But at the moment I need it out to do the measurements, so that's my number one priority at the moment, is getting this out. Another thing that I have discovered in the process of doing all this with this particular one, I've mentioned it before, and I said on my Instagram post that I suspect this is some kind of special service vehicle. It's got special vehicle preparation stickers in it, it's calibrated speedo, it's got siren, all extra wiring to the headlights, to cut off extra wiring loom, everything like that, and there's a hole in the roof for what was presumably wires for lights. So there's lots of things that point to it being some kind of service vehicle. The two companies that deal with those things are being non-responsive to emails, so I can't find any more information about that, which is unfortunate. Not that I need to, but it would be nice to. But also one thing I found as well is there was a fuse round by the fuse box that someone had added in that was labelled crane. I had no idea what it was. I sort of assumed there's a big metal lug in the boot, near the tailgate. So I was like, oh, someone's obviously had, like, I don't know, maybe an engine crane in there, and they've used it for craning engines in and out. But upon further digging and ripping apart some of the interior for some other bits, I discovered a whole controller and everything for a mobility scooter lift, which also explains why the back half of the interior is immaculate, because I would imagine most of the time it's been lined and had all protective gear in it. So that's one mystery solved, and I can only assume this box of tricks here, which is just a box of fuses, is all to do with that. At first I was a bit unsure as to whether or not it was original, because it seems to follow a lot of the original wiring and stuff. It's actually quite a neat thing, but the telltale giveaway was the fact that this was attached to the outside of the existing fuse box and everything like this, and it was just, the bracket was just attached on with a couple of self-tappers, and there's no way that's original Land Rover. So yeah, so that must be all to do with that. So I'm hoping that I can just cut that out and get that gone, so that's all right. Yeah, so hopefully that's given people a bit of an insight to what's involved with getting one of these V8s out. Say the TDV6 is probably about 10 hours. I think this so far I'm probably 14-15 hours now. It is a bit more tricky to get out, as I said, mainly because of the auto box. That is the big pain in the backside, and you've got all the extra cooler lines and everything like that. There's just more of it, so it just makes it more difficult. The engine itself actually relatively easy. So one thing I did work out as well is the alternators between the TDV6 and the V8, petrol V8, are basically the same. They do have different part numbers. The plugs are the same. The actual units themselves are the same. The difference in the part numbers is the pulley. So the TDV6 has what I think is an 8-rib belt, whereas the V8 only has a 6-rib belt. So the pulleys and the offsets look the same, except the V8 one only has 6 ribs on it and the V6 one has 8 ribs. So because I fitted a brand new alternator to mine less than 10,000 miles ago, I'm going to be fitting the TDV6 alternator to the V8, and it will just run with 6 ribs instead of 8, which is not going to bother it at all. All the alignment looks exactly the same, so I don't see there being any problem at all with that. So yeah, so hopefully this will be on the garage floor in the next hopefully week. So yeah, I'll just quickly crawl underneath and show you what we're talking about with the torque converter bolts and everything like that. But yeah, so hopefully this shows up on camera. Let's try and not have a big shadow. So you've got that massive rubber grommet there. You just pull that out, and then you can see the back of the flex plate. You just line it up until your bolts, torque converter bolts line up, and then you just undo them. So I'm pretty sure there's only 3, but only time will tell. Starter motor goes in that gap there, so let's say fairly easy to get out. I ended up undoing the main power cable after I'd removed it, because it's right on top and not that easy to get to. So yeah, and then the starter itself actually came out through the gap here between the bottom arm and the chassis rail, so that wasn't too difficult. These two, don't know if you can see up here, let's try and get it a bit better. So up here, so this is the anti-roll bar and this is the chassis. So up there, where are we? Sort of see it just there-ish. You might be able to see it easier from this side. Yeah, so you can see there. This is painful. So you can see there, that's where one of the Bellhausen bolts is, which is fine, you know, you can see it plenty easy enough. but trying to get to it, because you've got this massive sump on the gearbox that just restricts all movement. You know, you can't get anything in here. You end up having to use all wobbly sockets and stuff like that. So that was a bit of a pain, but they're all out. So all of the other Bellhausen bolts are really nice and easy to get to. You do have to remove the cats, but you've got to do that anyway. These the bolts are fairly easy to get to, but they are seized solid on this, as almost all exhaust parts are. So what I did is I actually went through in the wheel arch and actually just with a reciprocating saw cut them off here. I'm not going to be using the cats on this, so I don't need them, and rather than fanning around trying to get the bolts out with special tools and things like that, I'll just do it when it's on the floor in the garage. It's a lot easier, save loads of time. You can get the cats out fairly easy. I had to cut the exhaust section here because where the joins are, it all just rusted solid, and yeah, so they have to come out. That gives you so much more room, and yeah, obviously disconnecting all the lambda sensor wiring as well is a must. The wires are there. I had to cut that one because it was seized solid in the thing, so I'm gonna have to re-terminate that. Although that's actually the lambda sensor wire, and the plug is still on top of this gearbox member here. So same with that one, I cut the wires because I'm not reusing the lambdas, but the plugs are still there, so when it comes to fitting the new exhaust system, I can terminate those as accordingly. So I'm hoping here, so my plan is not to run any silencers and actually run the exhaust system this, you know, this side down this bit here, and then actually get rid of the fuel tank, because I'll be going LPG, and put a smaller fuel tank in, and then running the other side exhaust along that chassis rail that side. So that then gives me all this space in here for 2 large LPG tanks. So I'm going to do some measuring in a little while and try and figure out actually how big I can get an LPG tank, and yeah, hopefully I should be able to get a decent capacity, which would be nice for you know, long trips and stuff. So yeah, so that's probably about it from under here. It's all, as you can see, it's all way more accessible than the TDV6. The reason why this has taken a bit longer is because there's no information online about it like there is on the TDV6s, just because these are so much rarer, and you know, they're not having to come out every 10 minutes, so the knowledge just isn't there. So a lot of it was figuring out what has to come off first and stuff like that. And also, this car's a lot more rusty than mine, and it shows with a lot of the bolts. I've had a lot of bolts snap on it, which is quite annoying, but luckily so far it doesn't seem to have hindered me getting it out. So yeah, this is what I mean about the sump. So the sump is one whole pan underneath there, so to get that off is quite a big job, but this has got to go up and over the diff. So I mean, luckily it's only actually got to go up and over the outrigger of the diff, not the whole unit, and it is probably only 2 or 3 inches before it goes up and over. So I'm hoping with a bit of tilting, a bit of, you know, manipulation of the engine as it comes out, hopefully you should be able to get it up and over, but time will tell. And obviously whatever I find I will publish so people know, and yeah, we'll go from there. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you're finding these videos helpful at all, then let me know, because it's nice to know that they're appreciated. And yeah, tune in for the next one, where hopefully the engine will be in the garage and we'll be measuring up for the flywheel. So thank you very much.